Hey, gang.
Hey, everybody.
Well, 3:05, so let's dive in. So, happy week of Thanksgiving. Thanks for coming during Pie Week or whatever it is you got going on this week and taking time out of your schedule. Dee is going to be telling us all about how she has, through a series of unfortunate events, figured out how to take what was a 0% referral during the transaction all the way to 100% and growing, because she's working on that percent referral during the transaction. So when I say stuff like that, probably not with you guys because you guys are like the smartest people on the planet. But when I say stuff like that, the number one question people ask me first is, how do you have more than 100% referrals during the transaction? So there are usually more than one person transacting. So often we have a married couple of some kind transacting, and that's two humans able to give us a referral, and or one human able to give us more than one referral. So that's how you get more than 100% referral rate. So Deanna, tell us, maybe give us like the backstory why you weren't getting the referral rate that you wanted, and then we can talk about how we took it from that 0% and the circumstances under which you were getting 0%, because I think a lot of people would appreciate hearing what was the roadblock for you on the 0% originally.
I'd say it really came down to a small handful of things. I think the number one thing we had to get around was mindset first, right? Understanding that it's not salesy to ask for those referrals during the transaction. We were running into a lot of mindset roadblocks around that. Like, that's not why I have this role. That's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I just want to be back end support, all that good stuff. And it's true, right? Because that's, as operations people, what we're really super good at. And another thing we're really super good at is building these relationships with people, because we lead with a servant's heart. And that means we want to give everybody the best experience possible. So as long as we're still committed to doing that, there's no reason that we can't ask for a referral in return, so that we can gift that incredible experience to somebody else. The second thing I would say is knowing what to say, right? Well, how do I ask for that referral? How do I not just get on the phone and say, oh my gosh, great news, your property inspection came back and everything was glorious. Do you have some business for me, right? It can't be quite that simple. So understanding what to say and how to say it. And then the third thing I would say would be really systematizing it. When are you specifically asking for that referral? When's a good time versus maybe not such a great time? Like if somebody gets $20,000 under their appraisal value, that might not be the best time to ask for additional business, right? They're going to be like in some pain. And also knowing how many times to ask for it throughout that period, which is something we're still working on right now. Our biggest hurdle currently is documenting those asks thoroughly enough. So that's going to be the next thing that we're working on big time. But I would say those are the first handful of things that we really had to overcome, pretty much in that order, actually, before we really started.
There's some more to the story there, but before we dive into that, as a leader of an operations team, so you had a TC and an LC working on this goal, like this was their goal. You were supporting them. What kind of support were you providing them and still getting this 0%? And hang tight with me, people, because I think this is really critical to what's going on in some of your teams. So what support did they have? What were you as a leader working on growing for your team, yourself, etc.?
So just like how our agents do script and role play for the first 15 to 30 minutes of their day every morning, we were doing that from an operations standpoint. How are we making these calls? What do they sound like? What kind of feedback can we be providing you? And I was also, as the director of operations, making one of our 5 from, well, it'd be 6 calls from listing to close on the listing side, 5 calls from like buyer agency to close, right? I was offering to make at least 2 of those calls per transaction on behalf of them, just to kind of follow up, touch base as the director of operations, introduce myself, let them know that even though I might not be totally hands-on in their file was just as important to me as it was to their agent, to their TC, to their listing manager, and to get that third voice of kind of asking, hey, how are we doing, right? Because sometimes it can be hard to say, I'm not satisfied with you on the phone to a person voice to voice. For some people, they don't care, right? They'll tell you. And some people, they're like, oh no, yeah, everything's fine. So we kind of found that having that third voice kind of saying, are we doing okay? There was a little bit more transparency there. So those were some of the ways that we were supporting each other. And obviously I was helping them to build those conversations into our auto plans through our CRM. We even had the script of what to say listed out in the task. So there was no worry about searching for it or where to find it. You just pull your task up, make that phone call, and read it right off of the script, but customize it to you.
So Dee, once you started making those calls, like a support call to the transaction, because up to this point, like we had 0 referrals. So once you started making the support call, how many referrals did you personally get?
In the first week or two, I collected 7 referrals.
7 listings in the first week or two. Now, okay, so time out, because now at this point, everybody's thinking like, wow, I saw Kyle give you like the roofs up. So now everybody's thinking like, what's happening? Okay, so how many had your staff collected?
Oh, altogether, the entire team?
No, your staff, your LC and your team.
The operations staff. I think our listing manager had gotten us 1.
Yeah, okay. So now something happened which drastically changed the results you were getting, because here we had like Dee got 7. So she's starting to prove out that she can do it. So what then happened that took you from, you know, the 0% to the 100% almost overnight?
I took back both roles, ultimately. Yeah, so we ended up taking back both roles, or I ended up taking back both roles. It was highly painful, and still can be as we're on the hunt for talent. So if you know anybody in Baltimore, Maryland, send them my way. And I refused to not remain committed to the original goal at hand, right? Which was to continue collecting those referrals. And the truth is one thing that I really loved about actually stepping back into making those calls, even before we had let the leverage go, was it reconnected me with the clients again. One thing that I loved so much about doing listing management and transaction coordination before becoming a DOO was that client interaction. It kind of gave me my energy throughout the day and made me feel empowered to keep pushing because I was so connected and invested in these people and their lives. So it actually made me happier to continue throughout all the chaos and craziness, to just stop and have a quick little conversation every once in a while.
So you had staff, you had systems, you had scripts, you had practice, you had skill set development time, and we were still getting almost 0 results. Like we got one referral out of all that. And
we couldn't get over the hump of mindset. Mindset was the biggest hurdle that we couldn't break through.
Over the hump of talent.
You
put talent in the role with the right systems and the right scripts, and almost overnight we went to 100%. So Dee is obviously very talented. But what I think is important to hear here is that if you're not getting the results you want, you might need to start questioning the talent. If you've got the systems, if you've got the scripts, if you've got the skill set support. So that is why I wanted you to tell, like, I don't usually ask like, why were you failing? But that's why I wanted her to tell the story of like, what was going on when you were getting 0%, then what was going on when you got 100%. So now I'm going to like totally hand it back to you, Dee, now that like everybody's got kind of the story, for you to talk about those things that you were mentioning at the beginning, like the pivot points, like the systems, the scripts, the development, the role play you were doing with them. Walk people through, like, and then the floor also asks questions, like walk people through how, like literally how you get your current 100% rate.
Sure. So the first thing,
what is your deal?
The first thing I did, which was tremendously helpful, was sign up for Role Play Rumble. Nobody asked me to put the plug in there. It's just
I didn't tell her to say that.
I signed up for Role Play Rumble pretty much as soon as it got launched. And with it came not only all of the scripts that you need in order to be successful, but also the systems in order to systematize the conversations. And having that ability to just literally role play Rumble, right? Those scripts made having the conversation so much more powerful, because it's just like what we teach our agents, right? Practice, practice, practice. As our ISA coach would say, practice makes permanent. And the more you internalize a script, the more it becomes you saying the script, not you reading a script, which are two very different things, right? So it's, you start to understand the road map of the conversation, and you truly make it your own. I actually remember you and me, Megan, going through it, and she would stop me sentence after sentence after sentence. Try it again, try it again, try it again. And it took that level of commitment multiple times until I started to really feel that rhythm and flow and that confidence in that conversation. So Role Play Rumble is incredibly powerful. If this is something that you guys are looking into wanting to do for your teams, and you're not really sure where to start, that's a great place to start, because you're going to be surrounded by other operations people curious about how to be successful here too. And it is a very safe, judgment-free space to just practice, 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 practice. That was actually the first step, in all transparency. Again, no one asked me to say this. Role Play Rumble is what got us going. And then after that, we went back to our auto plans that we had previously developed through, we use Brivity, the Brivity CRM. And I'm sure you can do very similar things through smart plans in Command. I'm sure like TC Workflow, things like that. Other CRMs have these kinds of capabilities. We just personally use Brivity. And one thing I really love about Brivity is that you're able to add these instructions or notes into different tasks that will generate every time, right? So we would have different touches go out to the clients. The first one is a phone call, right? Welcoming them. Hey, how's it going? Thanks for signing your listing agreement with us. Here's what to expect. Oh, by the way, right? Has our agent told you about our promise script yet? And if they go, no, what is that, right? Oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell you about our promise. So on and so forth. Go right into the promise script. And then throughout the transaction, we have other reminders to continue to do it. So for example, one might be right when you go under contract. That's an exciting time. You always want to hit them when they're at a high, right? Oh my gosh, congratulations. It was crazy. You did so much work getting your house ready. I know it was hectic trying to navigate all of those showings on top of your already busy schedule, but here we are. You made it. We're under contract, right? So excited. Let's go over some terms and details. And oh, by the way, on a scale of like 1 to 10, how would you say that we're doing so far? 10 being you couldn't imagine a better experience, 1 being we have a lot of improvement right before you're happy with us. And as long as it's a 10, when can I expect a referral from you, right? In so many words. Another time that we reach out is after appraisals, as long as it comes in at value. That's another reason to celebrate. And then we call again after close to congratulate them on their settlement. So, you know, teeing up all those different times, those high points when they're excited and they're happy and they're thrilled to ask for those referrals can't be beat. And they don't always give them to me directly. As a matter of fact, they almost never give them to me directly. I do encourage them to send them over to their agents. I've collected maybe 2 or 3 here and there when they've actually like been on the phone with me and said, oh yeah, no, I've got this person. But for the most part, I'm like, just think about it. If you don't have anybody right now, that's totally fine. Give Phil a call, give Tom a call, Lisa, Mary, Jerry, whoever, give them a call, let them know, and make sure you let them know that I asked, right? And it's pretty much that simple. Like I said, the biggest hurdle we have to go through right now is I have to do a much better job of documenting those conversations. I'm documenting them in our CRM, but I really need to put it on like a separate spreadsheet to make sure that I'm logging and tracking my activities to see that I'm truly getting results out of them. That's mostly it, guys. The biggest thing I'd say to overcome is always going to be mindset, right? I mean, even I still to this day get nervous making these calls. I get little butterflies in my stomach before I pick up the phone. But I always go back to, I used to be a theater geek once upon a time. And I always go back to what a director told me before a show, which was, it's a good thing to be nervous because it means you still care and it means you care about doing it right, right? So I always just go back to those words and remind myself, I'm only nervous because I want to do a good job. And then I just have a really human conversation and I follow my roadmap.
Dee, when we were talking about going from 100 to 200% and like some of the, because like you said, we scripted really early on and it was like totally different than the way you sound now. So, but then you talked about kind of like waitressing. So talk about that. Like how do you think about the conversation?
Oh yeah. So not only was my first job in waitressing, but shortly after that, I worked at a call center. And I can tell you that I would, to this day, much rather get yelled at over the phone than yelled at face to face. So if for some reason my script does offend somebody, I know that the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to say, I really appreciate your honesty and transparency. Thank you so much for the feedback. I'll check in with you in a day or two to see if we can make this right, right? call it a day. Let it roll off your back. The worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, I don't have time for this. I don't know why you keep asking me. Leave me alone. I'm so sorry to bug you. That is certainly not my intention. What would be the best way for me to reach out to you after this point? So I understand, right? The last thing I want to do is interrupt your day any further. Is there a better time for me to call? Things like that. So
now talk about how you feel like you get better referrals the same way you got better tips.
Oh,
yeah.
I see where you're going. Yeah. So I actually, I noticed early on when I was waitressing, I wanted to be super bubbly and outgoing and go above and beyond for my tables. And I noticed that the more I tried way too hard, the less money I made. But the more I just kind of acted like myself, I was still cheery, I was still happy, but I just wasn't being false about it, I guess you could say. I was being the more I was my authentic self, the more tips I saw, the higher tips I saw, and the more money that I made. So it kind of clicked with me. People can really sense authenticity, and they can sense when you're not being authentic, and people appreciate the authenticity. While it's always great to be warm and bubbly and cheery, there is a line where people start to notice, all right, honey, we get it. Just be you. And that's the most powerful thing you could ever be. And I saw the same results when it came to our referrals. The more I felt like I was really pushing for it, the more people got turned off by it. But the more I just laughed and cracked jokes and was a little silly on the phone, let my personality shine through, the more people connected with me and were more willing to give me those referrals, because it started to feel almost like a friendship being formed as opposed to just a business relationship.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, you got 40 minutes to ask her whatever the heck you want. What do you want to know from Deanna? And remember, she did this in 2.5 months. So she lost her staff and turned the whole thing around in about 2.5 months. So proof of concept being, it doesn't have to take time, and it doesn't have to be this complicated thing. Like, you get the right systems, the right scripts, and the right talent, and you can go from 0 to 100 almost immediately. So let's open it up. I know everybody's probably got questions who's been trying to duplicate this themselves. So let's go. What you got?
I had a question. Deanna, do you find it awkward when, or even do you ask again if you've already received a referral from someone? So say you had success after you checked in with them about having the listing paperwork signed. Do you find it awkward to ask for another referral, or where do you go from there once you're successful in that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. One thing that I found is, if I do know that a person has already given me a referral, the first thing I do is I actually reach out to the agent first and find out what's going on with them. Have you shown them any houses? Are they getting pre-approved? What have your conversations been like so far? Kind of get an update there. And then I have a great reason to call them, because now I'm going to thank them for the referral. I'm going to give them an update on their referral. And then I'm going to ask, they are so freaking awesome. We are so honored that you sent them over to us. Who else do you know that's like that we can help right now? We just want to fill our business with people just like them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Super classy. Love that.
Deanna, I'm sorry, I missed your the proper pronunciation, so I feel terrible. But what's
okay,
your 5?
Me?
Perfect. By the way, we'll meet up in Fells Point some point.
Yes, please.
So what were the 5 touch points? Because you started off by saying oh, if I own 2 of the 5, right? And then you talked about the progression of that. So what do you see as your 5 touch points in the transaction where you can maximize the results of this?
Sure. So that's a great question. So on the listing side, it's immediately after we get our signed listing agreement, we reach out. Once the property actually goes live on the market, we reach out again. Congratulations, it's active, right? We reach out again once the property goes under contract. And then as long as the home inspections go well and everyone's agreed upon it, it's not like a super painful experience to get everyone to agree, we'll call after that too. But as you know, that can sometimes be a little touch and feel. Same thing with appraisals. That'll be the either 4th or 5th touch, as long as it comes in at value. The final one will be, and this will be either the 5th or the 6th, will be after settlement. And we're actually about to add another one for a 2-week post-settlement check-in after they've kind of settled and are moved in and aren't feeling the pain and craziness of unpacking.
And that's
So-
all about the 200% strategy, just FYI. Like if you're still working on the 100%, no need to kind of add some of the more, like focus on the 100%. Get 100 and then go to 200.
Yeah, whatever you as your team defines as a high point in the transaction where they're going to be excited, that's going to be the best time to call. Same thing with like a buyer agency. It's pretty much the same. Once we get the agreement, we call. Once they go under contract, we call. We might even call once they get pre-approved. If we've got that agency agreement signed prior to pre-approval, we might give them a call then, as long as the agent notifies us and say, oh my God, congratulations, you did it. And it was painless, right? It wasn't as bad as you thought. Just a lot of paperwork, but that's okay. You made it. Everyone lived.
So when you hire these next people, how are you going to teach them differently? It sounds like you were doing a bunch of things amazing and not getting results. So what changes with these new people? How do you clone yourself?
Accountability and partnership. That's what it's going to really come down to. I have to do a much better job of making sure during the CV process that they're on board with this expectation before I'm even going to greenlight them as a hire. That's going to have to be number one. So,
and talent, we can all admit there was like a little bit of lack of talent going on in this.
There was,
yeah,
absolutely. And I have interviewed, well, I've screened 87 resumes, and I had sent KPAs out to like 10 people and got down to like the four quadrants with 2 of my candidates. And both of those candidates transparently told me these conversations are conversations they would 100% never even consider being interested in. And for that reason, I moved forward with neither of them. So the pain continues until it doesn't, but pain's always only temporary.
But I think that's such a great example of like not hiring out of pain. Like it's painful, y'all. She's got the whole operations department. She's doing all of the jobs right now, all of them.
Yeah.
And so she could have hired out of pain, but she didn't.
And we're actually closing more business than we have all year. So
yeah, that's commitment to talent, right? Waiting until we have the right talent. So it's like, yeah, power to you, D. Like, keep going.
we're trying.
Megan, I have a few questions for Deanna.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if my audio was good. Deanna, thank you for sharing really so much great insight here. Can you touch on your current team structure? Perhaps you already have, but I'd like to know what your current team structure is.
Yeah, so for right now, the only person in operations is this guy right here, 2 thumbs, right? And then we have Tom, our team owner, who is still in production. We have 3 buyer's agents, Jerry, Mary, and Lisa. And then we have Phil, who does both listings and buyers. And we have 2 ISAs. That's it.
Okay, so it's yourself in operations. You have Tom as your Rainmaker team leader, owner, right? 3 buyer's agents, and you have 2 in an ISA role.
Yes. And then we have 1 agent that takes listings and buyers right now.
Wow, that's a lot in a production role for one's admin support.
Yes,
It's not by design, Erica. We're like, no one is suggesting this.
Right.
So please don't take it back.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I don't recommend it.
Models. I'm really curious because this is very impressive, and it's all been centered on accountability, right? And these are things that we're going through at the infancy of our business as a team. When you decided to, sounds like, go back to the basics and take this by the helm, what did it do in terms of changing the morale within your team? Was that an objective that you set forth prior to taking this on, before you had the metrics to evaluate your results? Did it encourage, inspire those within your team that weren't performing according to expectations? I'm curious, how you navigated through that, and if there were expectations set in place.
So as we slowly kind of introduce this into our team, I would say that in the very beginning, it sort of sparked a little bit of morale because they saw this as an opportunity to make more income because we did have bonus structures around this as well, right? However, as we really kind of dug into it and started to hold it highly accountable, the morale drastically dropped. And so we started taking it back to conversations around personal goals, right? Like, well, how can I help you fund these bigger personal goals that you have? We can use this as a strategy, right? So tell me a little bit more. It's all about asking questions. Tell me a little bit more about what's holding you back from this. Tell me a little bit more about why you have this mindset cloud around making these conversations. Tell me a little bit more about what it means to be salesy, like define that for me, right? And just staying in curiosity. And at the end of the day, you know, I did have to break it down and just say, this is going to be a moving expectation of these roles moving forward. And I'm really trying to see if I can get your buy-in on this and help you see it differently. I was offering them coaching sessions with my coach, offering them Ask an Ops Coach sessions with Megan and Zach, offering them, you know, Zoom calls with other DOOs that I know to get around this blockage. They didn't want to take advantage of any of those opportunities, and they didn't want to sign up for Role Play Rumble. So at that point, I had to acknowledge the fact that I truly believe I gave them all the opportunities and tools that I possibly could to try to switch that mindset. But if they're not willing to even try and see it from a different light, that's going to be out of my control. And so it was time to move on.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
I love what you said. You know, when you make these client care calls, while there's some apprehension and some nervousness, you found that as long as you were leading by genuine curiosity and just being your authentic self and not perhaps keeping an end goal in mind, it's just, am I really checking in with this given client and making a great experience out of it? And then you let that just unfold, and the byproduct is from the effort. I love what you said about that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And that was one thing that was really important to me, was also leading by example. It wasn't, I never wanted it to come off as, hey, this isn't something that I've ever done, but guess what you guys get to do now, right? I really wanted to make it like a team collaborative effort of, we're going to figure this out and do this together. I'm going to make these calls with you. I'm going to show you that if I can do it, you can do it, right? And there's no need. We never want anything on our organization to feel like it's just top down. I'm telling you to do this, so just do it. Hey, this is brand new to all of us, but I know it can be highly lucrative. I want to help you guys meet your financial goals. Let's do this together and see what it's going to take. And I'll fill with you.
Prior to you implementing this, were you overseeing the accountability aspect of the business with the other agents? Was that Tom's? Was that done collaboratively? And did that change subsequently?
So interestingly enough, it actually did change. I actually was holding the 411s for all of the team members. And then as we kind of started to get more focused, there was a lot of things happening on the team too, just outside of this as well. But as we got more focused on trying to make this a measurable expectation, Tom was also starting to feel a little too out of the loop in terms of what was going on with his salespeople. So we did make the decision for him to take over the sales accountability sessions while I just maintained the operation ones. And even now, even though I'm the only operations person, he's still the one holding those sales accountability sessions until we get directors in place of those departments to hold them for him.
Yeah, I don't remember your numbers off the top of my head, shame on me, but the when we start to see this metric tick up, there can be sometimes like a false sense of success, because often if we're not approaching it with authenticity, we get the referral and it's not real. So one of the questions I asked Dee, like when she's starting to have the success, right, is like, okay, but where are the closings? So Deanna, tell us about your team's conversion rate on these referrals and what kind of GCI were in just 2.5 months. It was like 2.5 months ago, y'all. This is not like sometime in the distant past. Like what amount of closings and GCI we're seeing from your takeover?
So, and this is where I need to do a much better job of tracking this on my end. Transparently, I don't remember the exact number of closings, but I do remember the GCI number, weirdly enough, was 38,760. So let me see if I can actually look really quickly at what the numbers.
Even, I mean, she doesn't have the super high average sales price, so just know that's not like, you know, a deal or something. But the point is like 38,000, how close to quantifying your operation would that be for you individually? You know, if you're thinking about doing this in 2.5 months, she not only took back over the entire operations department, but she generated 38,000 in GCI because she's showing up authentically asking for that referral. So this is really, this is a nuanced thing to go get 100% referral rate. That also closes and closes fast, 2.5 months. So these are people who are ready today. These aren't like, oh, well, my great uncle might kind of, these are raving fans giving her, just take this back to our last book, giving her a referral. It's not somebody scraping the bottom of their contacts list just to get her off their back. Like these are real referrals.
Yes. And one thing, and I'm glad you mentioned this, Megan, is that for my first like year or two as a director of operations in real estate, I kept asking myself, like, how do I make myself a 3x ROI? How do I make myself a 10x ROI? How do I bring that kind of income back to the team? And for a long time, I thought the only way to do it was out of my own personal sphere and database. Well, looking at the past 2.5 months at $38,000 in GCI, that's 1 year's salary in our market. That's already a 1x in 2.5 months. So you figure if you break that out into quarters, there's your 3x ROI for that hire. Even if they never bring you anything from their personal sphere and database, which they still should, but that's besides the point.
Are you reaching out to the teams like team leads as well as this SOI? And if you're doing SOI, how are you having that conversation with the agents?
You mean just leads that are coming in for all of like marketing efforts and things like that?
Yeah.
No, so that's that I'm not doing that. Our ISAs totally own that in our business. So anything that's coming in off Facebook, postcards, golden letters, sign calls, you know, go through the litany of lists of, of lead sources. They are taking all and fielding all of those calls for us and converting all of those calls for us. These conversations that I'm having are strictly just during the transaction for our active and pending clients. And then the only time I do call into the database itself is around like our events and giveaways. And we break out a list for everybody to call out to.
I mean, I wouldn't bet against her though. Like if her ISAs quit, she could probably beat their conversion. She won the last competition for 7 appointments.
Yeah, I came out higher than every single salesperson on my team in a day. I got 11 referrals in one day.
She's talented.
I said, ISAs, where you at? I like to raise the stakes.
12 minutes. What other questions you got for Deanna?
I have a quick question about, it might seem kind of silly and nitpicky, but just wondering if you ever leave that request on a voicemail or if you always wait to speak with someone to make that request or referral request, or if it ever turns up in an email, for example, or if you always try to get that person on the phone and make the request directly.
Yeah, so I always try to do it voice to voice. If I do end up having to leave a voicemail, I will make sure to still congratulate them on that voicemail and ask them to please call me back at their earliest convenience so we can discuss it further and I can answer any questions that they might have. So if they don't call me back in like the next 24 hours or so, I'll call them again. Hey, I'm so sorry. I'm really not trying to bug you. I just wanted to make sure I got you on the phone so we could actually talk about this. I know you're getting my texts and my emails that are following up with you about the same thing, but I always like to make sure that we're taking the time to sit down and have a conversation. But you know how it is, sometimes you start talking and 20,000 questions pop into your head that you never even had before once we get going. So let's talk about it now. Do you have 5 minutes? So.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
She did not sound like that the first time she started scripting. So if you're sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, I do not sound like that, like relax, it's fine. Like neither did she, so yeah.
Practice makes permanent.
Yeah.
And I still make mistakes. I still stumble on my words or confuse words or get tongue tied or forget what I'm saying because I'm a human being and so are all of you. So it's okay. You got to give yourself some grace, right? I mean, if I can stumble on my words having conversations with people I've been friends with for 10 years, I'm certainly going to mess up every once in a while with a client, but it's okay. You just got to laugh it off and keep going. Authenticity.
Deanna, do you know what your call to contact and conversion ratio was during that 2.5-month time frame?
Unfortunately, I don't. So during all this kind of craziness and chaos, I've just been kind of checking the task off as it comes up. So that is the next thing that Megan has pushed me to do better, is to really document all of this at a higher level. So that is going to be my next journey to take.
And when you did identify an opportunity, let's say, how did you delegate that? Did you give it directly to your rainmaker, or was it on a round robin rotation? How did you do that?
So typically we're just giving it back to whoever owns that piece of business at the time, right? So because a lot of these, and you can do it differently on your team. For us, me and my rainmaker did talk about it, and he really prefers for, if it's coming off of a piece of Phil's business, we want that referral to go back to Phil, right? Because we still have a big emphasis on maintaining that relationship with the agent. We want to have a relationship with our clients, but we don't want to take that away from the agent. So if we're helping them build their databases out, we want to give that business back to them. If for some reason they're like, I seriously can't even take another lead right now, there's no way, then yeah, I'll reach out to my ISAs and find out who's next in line. But typically we're giving it back to whatever piece of business it originated from, agent wise.
And I've talked to some of you guys about this, but just consider the value proposition in recruiting when you have an operations team that has a 100% referral rate. It's basically saying, even if we gave you the lead and you're closing that business, you're going to get a referral. Like, you're 100% likely to get a referral per transaction you close with us. It's an incredible value proposition for recruiting.
We're going to help you build your database. Yay!
Yeah, can I just get clarity on one thing? When you refer to not taking away from the agent's business and making sure that stays intact, are you differentiating between what is cultivated and what is converted? So in other words, like what the agent brings forth as their own contact versus a lead provided by the team that they converted?
Sure. Yeah. So at the end of the day, that conversion is still on the responsibility of the agent, right? Like, I can get that referral. I can even give them the contact information. But once it moves to that cultivation period, the agent owns that responsibility. If it is a referral that's going to be like more than 3 months out, the agent reserves the right to turn it over to our ISA division to nurture that on their behalf. Sometimes we even let them do as short as 30 days, depending on what their current pipeline looks like. But ultimately, the conversion point is out of my hands directly. Now, from an operations standpoint, if they come to me and say, Dee, we need better systems for follow-up, I own that, right? But I don't own the ultimate conversion. They need to be working and following up with the leads that we're providing them. I hope I answered your question fully.
Nodding as yes, but I'm not clear on one thing. I guess what I'm thinking about is the root of lead source, right? Where did the lead come from? Who generated it? So was it something that was added to the team's database because of the agent's sphere or somebody that was referred to them? Or was it a lead produced by the business? I guess that's a bit of lead ownership in that regard, because even once it's converted, it's still the team still owns the lead, so to speak, right? So when you have an existing client, past client that you will end up calling on, you apply your cadence to convert it. That was my question. How are you determining how it's delegated? And you said you want to make sure that you're not taken away from the business that the agent has brought forward.
Yes. So I think I understand your question. So we're still considering them a team generated lead if it's coming off of our efforts in trying to generate those referrals on their behalf. But we still want to make sure that my meaning of we want to maintain the relationship between the client and the agent is that we don't want to say, okay, I'm your TC now, you don't talk to them anymore, right? Like, I've got this, don't worry about your agent. We don't want that. We still want the actual relationship to be between the agent and the client. But when we are generating those referrals on their behalf, we do consider them team generated leads, business generated leads. Did that answer your question fully? I just want to make sure, because I don't want to leave you feeling Sorry, I just had an alarm go off. I don't want to leave you without clarity.
Thank you for addressing that. Appreciate it.
Sure. Everyone's in Thanksgiving mode already. I am too. It's okay.
So Dee, one of the things I hear a lot is I don't have time to get all those voice-to-voice calls in. And I love that you're doing 3 jobs and finding time to get all those voice-to-voice calls in.
Mhm.
Can you share with everyone how you're doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that we do is obviously time block, right? It's got to be on the calendar. So I was in the beginning finding that I was giving the clients way too much control around my time. Meaning they would just say, okay, I can talk at 2 o'clock today. And I'd be like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'll call you at 2, right? So it's getting really chaotic. So another thing, as I'm, failing forward in this model, I've noticed little things that I want to tweak here and there. I made myself a Calendly membership recently. And so I'm going to start adding that link into some of my touches that go out, like, hey, when would be the best time for you and I to talk? These are all the times that I have available. Let's match up, right? When we can actually have this conversation. Sometimes when I go to actually make that call, I say, hey, if now's not a good time, because I am going to need like 10 or 15 minutes of your time, could be shorter than that, could be as short as 5, right? But I want to make sure I give you enough time to answer all the questions that you need. Is now a good time, or can I call you back later today at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock? It's just like how we coach our ISAs to set appointments for our agents. I've got Thursday at 5 and Friday at 3 available. Which one works better for you, right? You want to use that same script for yourself too. So protect your time blocks, protect your calendar. Like I said, I've been kind of finding my way through the mess. But if you're just going to make those introductory calls, save yourself like an hour every afternoon. You might not even need that much time. It just depends on how many calls you actually have to make. The first like intro calls, when you're explaining your listing agreements and your contracts, they're going to take the longest. All the other calls where you're just congratulating people and asking for that referral, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. They don't take hardly any time at all.
I'm curious, what is the, with you taking those, because I felt that pain, some of what you're talking about, what is your load right now covering, and God bless your pea-picking heart, covering those, that many roles, those 3 different roles all at one time? What's your current load on like listings and transactions pending and all that?
So right now we are averaging anywhere from 25 to 30 pending transactions at a time. Yeah, and we're usually signing at least 7 to 8 new listings every month on average.
Okay, so we're very similar, except for we're doing closer to that number of listings like weekly.
Mhm.
So I just want to pick you up and tote you around your state and point at you and say, this is your chick right here. That's awesome, super impressive, and that is inspiring to me. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Want to come and work out here in Santa Barbara?
I could use a California vacay. Got to put my toes in the sand again soon. And seriously, if anyone knows any Rockstar admin people in Baltimore, Maryland, even not in Baltimore, just looking for a job, let me know. They can work remote. At this point, we'll take what we can get. So as long as they're talent, we'll make it work. So tell your people. I'll call you guys and ask for referrals too.
That should have been your fee. You should have requested 1 talent referral from everyone.
Oh yeah, it should have been. You guys want me to come back again? I'm going to need 1 referral per person.
Yeah, but undoubtedly, Dee, like you're super talented, and it's just like, it reminds me like talent changes everything. So put talent in the role of getting the referral, it changes everything. Now that said, like that she had took the time to build the systems and do all that stuff. So it wasn't just dropping like her into a systemless, scriptless world, right? She had pre-designed it before she lost her talent, but the talent factor was the real factor there in getting the referral. So mindset is everything, like Dee said, and if our talent is struggling to get the results, how are we improving the roadblock, which might be mindset? If you've already built the systems and you've got the scripts. And Dee, this was never meant to be like an RPR plug. So just to kind of like soften that, she didn't stay. Yeah, she didn't stay forever, right? Like she figured it out and then she's off and running. So, you know, I might make her come back to get to that 200% rate if she ever gets the talent she needs and she's got that bandwidth. But 1 to 200, like 0 to 100% is the easier percentage to get. 1 to 200% requires just a different set of skills. It's like a lot of refining.
Yeah.
So keep that.
And we started small and we slowly built up, just like everything else that we do in our business, right? Like
we took 2.5 months, so it really wasn't that slow. Like, no.
Well, what I mean is like, we started with like 3 touches per transaction and then we built it out to 5. And then, you know, we slowly but surely, a little bit at a time, chunked away at it, but we just wanted to get into it and start doing it. So just like not everybody starts out with a big fancy CRM in real estate, not everybody starts out with this big massive marketing budget in real estate. You just got to start small and slowly chunk away at it. So one thing at a time and just nail it.
I'll tell you, Dee, I'm so glad you pointed that out, because the number one mistake I see in my Role Play Rumble group is that people will come sometimes for like 2 months to Role Play Rumble and they will have yet to actually deliver the script. So you have to just do it. Like at some point it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to sweat and have the butterflies and like all that stuff, but it's a contact sport. Until you actually pick up the phone and call, you can't get a referral rate. Like you can practice to death, but at some point you just have to, like we need to coach our TCs or LCs ourselves into just picking up the phone. And it's not going to be super pretty the first time. Like go ahead and forgive yourself for that, because it's going to be a little ugly. And that's okay. Like that first one's like that first pancake, you know, and you get better as you go. So that I'm so glad you pointed that out, Dee. Like you started with like a step and then you had like 3 steps, you know, but you started and you didn't just prepare to start forever. Because if you had prepared to start for 2 months, you would have nothing. That was 2 months ago. You know what I mean? Like you'd be nowhere. So prepare a little and then just start and refine as you go.
Yep. And Gary's, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
Okay. I think where Dee got the hooks in me was when she stated, and they got in there deep, by the way, when she stated that she made a conscious decision with intentionality that she was going to be a servant leader, or lead with a servant's heart. I'll see you on RPR. That's what's up, right?
See you there, David. Can't wait.
What's up?
Yeah, she blew it out of the water. I mean, it took her like a week and a half to get 7 referrals. Like that's it. Like this process, I constantly tell people this isn't a long process. If you just do it, it's an instant process. You just have to do it.
And the best part is your rainmaker will never want to let you go. You're bringing more business in than his salespeople. He's gonna be like, what do I even need them for? Just kidding. We still need them. They still have plenty parts of their role that I don't want to do. So we still need them.
The thing I love that you said is that you led by example, right? You didn't just give it to them and say, this is what you're going to do. You were in the trenches with them and you led by example.
Yeah, that's always been really important to us, especially when we're trying to figure out, well, why aren't the agents doing this, or why aren't our ISAs doing this? And we have to ask ourselves, have we done it with them? Have we gotten down into the nitty gritty with them? Have we rolled up our sleeves and gotten our hands dirty with them? Do we truly know what their struggles are in this role, right? Until we dive in and do our best. And it doesn't mean that you have to have done every role to be successful in it, but sometimes giving yourself, especially if you own a department or own a role, giving yourself that humility to say, I'm going to get down and dirty with you, not only helps in better situations build that morale, build that team mindset, but also helps you better see the gaps of the opportunities too in your business. Like, oh, wow, now that I'm actually doing this with you, this system that I made does not make sense. Let's try something else. And it's okay.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you, Deanna, for being here to share all of that with us. I mean, truly, like, such good results. And I know it's Thanksgiving week. You guys have pie events. You guys are doing all kinds of stuff. So thank you for taking your time to be here and like what dedication to your growth. Zach, Paula, no, it's Paula's book. Paula, what's our book club book for the month? Because we've got that coming up December 2nd. So you've got the holidays to like catch up on it if you haven't picked it up yet.
Yep. And it goes right along with this theme, To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink.
Yeah, like truly, I think this could have been the book club. But To Sell is Human. So if you haven't picked that up, and you could leverage that with your ops departments. So if you are thinking of things like you're overcoming mindset issues, this might be a great one to throw into the ops department. If your ops don't have a chance to read it yet, Zach and I will redo the book club for Ask an Ops Coach, a little bit broader audience, so they could always join us then. So you could do it with us December 2nd, and then your ops people could join Zach and I a little bit later in the month. So check that out. Zach, any other, like, what am I missing? What else we got going on?
I think we're good. Just pay attention to the events and emails coming out, because of course with the shorter December that we'll be having, Let's Chat in its current form, we'll be back for the first week of December where we'll be doing the book. Then we'll have one more discussion, which I have to look up. I forget what that is, but we'll look that up. And then the very next one will be an Ask an Operation. So we won't be back together again until after the new year.
Yeah. Yep. So see you guys for book club after Thanksgiving. Have a great week. Hopefully you have some time off. We'll see you soon.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.